Welcome to Criminal Tracks, where we dive deep into the most shocking stories of crime, scandal, and downfall. Today, we uncover the dramatic rise and fall of Kris Wu, a global superstar turned convicted criminal. His story is one of power, deception, and the consequences of unchecked fame. Just a few years ago, Kris Wu was living the dream. He was more than just a pop idol. He was a phenomenon. With millions of fans worldwide, a successful music career, and roles in Hollywood films, he seemed untouchable. He walked the red carpets of the most prestigious fashion events, collaborated with brands like Louis Vuitton and Bulgari, and was seen as one of the most influential Chinese celebrities of his generation. His fans adored him, the media celebrated him, and the entertainment industry welcomed him with open arms. But behind the glamour and the flashing cameras, a dark secret was waiting to be exposed. It started as whispers, rumors on social media, vague accusations, and online discussions questioning his personal life. At first, no one took them seriously. After all, he was Kris Wu. He had money, fame, and connections. His fans dismissed the allegations as just another attempt to bring down a successful man. Then, everything changed. A young woman came forward with shocking claims, and this time, the world listened. She wasn't just accusing him of wrongdoing. She had evidence. Her story detailed a disturbing pattern of manipulation and abuse, and as more victims stepped forward, it became impossible to ignore. Screenshots, messages, and testimonies flooded the internet, painting a picture far darker than anyone had imagined. What followed was a media frenzy. News outlets across China and beyond picked up the story. Social media exploded with discussions, hashtags, and debates about Kris Wu's actions. As the investigation unfolded, law enforcement stepped in, and the shocking reality of what had been happening behind closed doors was finally exposed. Once a beloved celebrity, Kris Wu suddenly found himself at the center of one of the biggest scandals in the entertainment industry. His carefully crafted image collapsed overnight. Fans who had once idolized him began questioning everything they thought they knew. Brands distanced themselves, music platforms erased his songs, and his face, once everywhere, started disappearing from billboards and TV screens. The public watched in disbelief as the superstar, who had seemed invincible, fell from grace in the most dramatic way possible. How did it all happen? How did one of the most famous entertainers of his time go from walking red carpets to facing a prison sentence? Stay with us as we break down this shocking case piece by piece, uncovering the truth behind the fame, the power, and the downfall of Kris Wu. Kris Wu's journey to fame was nothing short of extraordinary. Born in China and raised in Canada, he had an international background that set him apart from other rising stars. His big break came when he was recruited by SM Entertainment, one of South Korea's most powerful entertainment companies. After years of intense training, he debuted as a member of EXO, a K-pop group that would go on to dominate the global music scene. As EXO's popularity skyrocketed, Kris Wu quickly became a fan favorite. His sharp looks, deep voice, and confident stage presence made him stand out. Fans from all over the world adored him, and his influence stretched far beyond South Korea. He wasn't just another idol, he was becoming a global figure. But behind the scenes, tensions were brewing. In 2014, Kris made a shocking move. He left EXO and filed a lawsuit against SM Entertainment, claiming unfair treatment and restrictions over his career. The sudden departure shocked fans and sent waves through the industry. Some supported him, while others saw him as a traitor. But despite the controversy, Kris Wu was determined to carve out his own path. Leaving the structured world of K-pop, he reinvented himself as a solo artist and actor. His first few singles quickly gained millions of views, proving that he still had the star power to command attention. Hollywood took notice, and soon he was making connections with major names in the entertainment world. He landed a role in XXX, Return of Xander Cage alongside Vin Diesel, a major milestone for any Chinese entertainer breaking into Western media. The opportunity cemented his status as not just a singer, but a true international celebrity. As his fame grew, so did his brand. Luxury fashion houses saw in him a powerful marketing tool. He became a brand ambassador for Burberry, the first non-British global face of the company. Later, he worked with Louis Vuitton, Bulgari, and other high-end brands, attending exclusive events and front-row fashion shows. Every move he made was carefully crafted to present him as a modern, stylish, and influential global star. The media praised him for bridging the gap between Eastern and Western entertainment. Fans admired his success story. A young man who had defied expectations, walked away from a major K-pop group, and still managed to rise even higher. His musical career continued to thrive. His songs blended Western and Chinese influences, attracting millions of listeners. He collaborated with American artists, performed at major events, and was even invited to the Super Bowl China halftime show. Streaming platforms promoted his work heavily, and his influence in both music and fashion kept growing. By all appearances, he was living the ultimate dream. But behind the glamorous public image, something else was happening. While fans saw a hard-working artist, insiders in the industry whispered about his extravagant lifestyle and the rumors surrounding his personal life. Stories about his private parties, exclusive gatherings, and the way he interacted with his fans began to circulate. These rumors were easy to dismiss. After all, celebrities were constantly dealing with gossip and speculation. For Kris Wu, any controversy was overshadowed by his continued success. He had built an empire on his own terms, proving that he didn't need the K-pop industry to thrive. For years, Kris Wu had maintained an image of perfection. He was the global superstar who had it all: fame, fortune, and a devoted fan base that defended him no matter what. He was seen as a role model, a trendsetter, someone young people looked up to. But in mid-2021, that carefully crafted image began to crumble. It started with one post, a simple message on social media that would change everything. A young woman named Du Meiju came forward with shocking allegations. She claimed that Kris Wu had used his fame and power to manipulate and exploit young women. She described a disturbing pattern where he would invite girls to exclusive parties under the promise of networking opportunities, career advancement, or simply the chance to meet their idol. According to her, these gatherings were not just social events, they had a much darker purpose. She detailed her own experience, alleging that she had been pressured into drinking heavily and then left in a vulnerable situation. Her words were direct, emotional, and impossible to ignore. At first, many dismissed her claims. Celebrity scandals were nothing new, and false accusations against famous figures had happened before. But Du Meiju didn't back down. She provided screenshots of conversations, messages exchanged between Kris Wu's associates and young women who had attended these parties. She painted a picture of a carefully constructed system, one that relied on secrecy, influence, and the belief that no one would dare speak up. Her post went viral almost instantly. Within hours, it became the most discussed topic on Chinese social media. The internet erupted with debates. Some fans rushed to defend Kris Wu, calling the accusations baseless and fabricated. Others began to question the idol they had supported for years. And then more voices emerged. One by one, other young women came forward with similar stories. They described encounters that followed the same pattern, being contacted by individuals working for Kris Wu, being invited to exclusive events, and being put in uncomfortable situations. Some claimed that they had been too afraid to speak up earlier, fearing the backlash that often came with accusing a powerful celebrity. But with Du Meiju leading the charge, they felt emboldened to share their experiences. As the allegations multiplied, the media took notice. Major news outlets in China began reporting on the story, amplifying the voices of the alleged victims. Public opinion started shifting rapidly. Brands that had previously partnered with Kris Wu, high-end fashion houses, luxury watches, and international corporations began quietly distancing themselves. Deals that had taken years to build were suddenly in jeopardy. The entertainment industry, which had once embraced him as one of its brightest stars, started going silent. Kris Wu's legal team quickly responded, denying all allegations and accusing Du Meiju of spreading false information. They threatened legal action, claiming that she was attempting to extort money and ruin his reputation. Statements were released insisting that Kris Wu had done nothing wrong, that he had always conducted himself professionally. But the damage had already been done. The court of public opinion had turned against him. The more his team tried to suppress the scandal, the more people questioned why they were working so hard to discredit the accusers instead of addressing the claims directly. Then, the situation escalated further. Authorities announced that they were officially opening an investigation. This wasn't just an online controversy anymore. It had become a criminal case. Police began collecting evidence, interviewing witnesses, and looking deeper into the allegations. What had started as a single social media post had now grown into a nationwide scandal with legal consequences. As the investigation continued, more disturbing details surfaced. Reports indicated that Kris Wu's alleged actions had been going on for years, hidden behind layers of wealth and influence. It became clear that this was bigger than just one celebrity. It was a moment of reckoning for the entire entertainment industry. His arrest was no longer a question of if, but when. The world watched as the once untouchable superstar found himself trapped in a reality he could no longer control. As the investigation into Kris Wu gained momentum, what was once dismissed as online rumors began turning into undeniable evidence. Authorities combed through phone records, financial transactions, and digital communications, uncovering a disturbing pattern that pointed to something far worse than the public had initially imagined. Screenshots of messages surfaced, showing alleged conversations between Kris Wu's associates and young women, many of whom had been minors at the time of their interactions. The messages painted a clear picture of a system carefully designed to target vulnerable individuals. Invitations were sent, promises were made, and once these women arrived at private gatherings, the power dynamics shifted drastically. Many of these interactions followed a strikingly similar pattern. Witnesses described being invited to lavish parties under the pretense of professional opportunities or exclusive networking events. Expensive gifts, luxury accommodations, and extravagant treatment created an environment where it became difficult to refuse anything. The atmosphere was controlled, with alcohol freely available and social pressure making it hard to leave once someone had entered. Some testimonies suggested that phones were taken away at the door, ensuring that no outside contact could be made. For many, what started as an exciting opportunity quickly turned into an experience they wished they could forget. Forensic analysis of Kris Wu's digital footprint revealed even more alarming details. Deleted messages were recovered, containing conversations that hinted at orchestrated attempts to suppress potential scandals before they could surface. Payments traced back to individuals involved in these gatherings raised serious questions about whether attempts had been made to silence certain individuals. One by one, those who had remained silent out of fear started to speak up. Some claimed they had been threatened with legal action if they ever disclosed what had happened. Others revealed that they had been offered financial compensation in exchange for their silence. The more evidence came to light, the harder it became to ignore the growing list of accusations against him. Media coverage intensified as journalists dug deeper into Kris Wu's past. Reports emerged about similar incidents spanning years, suggesting that this was not an isolated case, but a long-established pattern of behavior. Former acquaintances, staff members, and even former colleagues began sharing details about his off-stage lifestyle. While many had admired his polished public image, those who had worked closely with him described a different reality, one where power and status were used to manipulate those around him. It was no longer just one or two voices speaking out. This was now a full-scale reckoning. What made the case even more shocking was the involvement of law enforcement at the highest level. Unlike previous celebrity scandals that were often settled quietly, this case had captured the attention of authorities determined to make an example out of it. Raids were conducted at properties linked to Kris Wu, with law enforcement officers searching for concrete evidence that could substantiate the claims against him. The results were damning. Confiscated devices contained encrypted messages, hidden folders, and files that suggested careful efforts to cover tracks. Investigators uncovered inconsistencies in testimonies given by those who had initially defended him. What had started as a celebrity scandal had now escalated into something much bigger, an unfolding legal nightmare with potentially severe consequences. As more evidence surfaced, public perception of Kris Wu continued to shift. Supporters who had once defended him began questioning their loyalty. Fan pages that had previously celebrated his achievements started disappearing. Social media accounts once filled with admiration turned into spaces where people expressed disappointment and anger. The entertainment industry, sensing the inevitable fallout, moved quickly to distance itself. Contracts were terminated, endorsements were pulled, and streaming platforms erased his music and films without hesitation. It became clear that Kris Wu was no longer just a disgraced celebrity. He was now a symbol of the consequences that came with unchecked power and influence. The weight of the accusations, combined with the overwhelming evidence, left no room for doubt. The legal system had taken control of the case, and there was no turning back. The world watched as Kris Wu, once one of the most celebrated figures in entertainment, found himself standing at the edge of a reality he had never anticipated. The trial of Kris Wu was one of the most highly publicized legal cases in recent history. From the moment he was taken into custody, it was clear that this would not be a simple celebrity scandal that faded away. The Chinese legal system moved swiftly, conducting thorough investigations and gathering the necessary evidence. Unlike the controlled public image he once maintained, Kris Wu was now at the mercy of a judicial system that had little tolerance for high-profile figures who abused their influence. As the trial date approached, the media kept a close watch. Every detail, from his legal team's strategy to the prosecution's mounting evidence, was analyzed and discussed. The once revered artist, who had walked the red carpets of Hollywood and graced the covers of luxury magazines, was now seen wearing a detention uniform, escorted by law enforcement. Cameras captured his arrival at the courtroom, his expression distant, as if fully realizing the weight of what was about to unfold. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors presented their case with precision. Testimonies from multiple individuals detailed a consistent pattern of behavior, one that showed calculated manipulation and abuse of trust. Digital evidence, including recovered messages and financial transactions, supported their claims. Each new piece of information added another layer of credibility to the allegations. The prosecution painted a clear picture. This was not a misunderstanding or a smear campaign. This was a deliberate abuse of power, and there were too many voices, too many documents, and too many inconsistencies in his defense to ignore. The defense team, in contrast, struggled to counter the overwhelming amount of evidence. They argued that Kris Wu had been unfairly targeted due to his fame, and that the allegations were exaggerated. They pointed out inconsistencies in some witness statements, and attempted to cast doubt on the credibility of the primary accuser. But every argument was met with a counterpoint. Every attempt at damage control was overshadowed by the sheer volume of supporting evidence against him. The courtroom was silent as witness after witness recounted their experiences, detailing encounters that followed eerily similar patterns. Public reaction to the trial was intense. Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered, some demanding justice, while others still clung to the belief that their idol was innocent. Online, social media platforms became battlegrounds of debate, with fans expressing shock and disappointment. Some held on to hope that he would be cleared of charges, while others acknowledged the painful truth. This was the downfall of a man who once seemed untouchable. Then, the verdict was announced. The judge ruled against Kris Wu, sentencing him to 13 years in prison, followed by immediate deportation after serving his time. The courtroom was heavy with tension as the sentence was read aloud. There was no dramatic outburst, no final attempt at redemption. The reality of the situation had set in. The once celebrated icon of music, film, and fashion was now officially a convicted criminal. The sentence sent shockwaves through the industry. It was a clear message that no amount of fame or influence could place someone above the law. His assets were frozen, his music was removed from streaming platforms, and his name was systematically erased from entertainment history. Brands that had once proudly associated with him issued statements distancing themselves further. The industry that once celebrated him had now completely shut its doors. As he was escorted out of the courtroom, the world watched in silence. The same cameras that had once followed his every glamorous move now captured his fall from grace. His legacy, once built on admiration and success, had been reduced to a cautionary tale. The fallout from Kris Wu's conviction was immediate and irreversible. His name, once synonymous with success and global influence, became a symbol of scandal and disgrace. Every aspect of his career was wiped from existence. Music platforms removed his songs. Film studios erased his roles, and luxury brands deleted any trace of their past collaborations with him. His face, once displayed on billboards across major cities, disappeared overnight. The entertainment industry, which had once embraced him, turned its back without hesitation. Financially, the impact was devastating. His frozen assets included millions in brand deals, investments, and properties. Any remaining contracts were swiftly terminated, with companies issuing public statements condemning his actions. Lawsuits from former business partners followed, each seeking to distance themselves from the controversy. The empire he had built over a decade crumbled in mere months. Public reaction reflected the gravity of the case. Many who had once defended him felt betrayed, realizing they had supported someone who had abused his position. Online communities that had once celebrated his achievements became spaces of debate as fans processed the reality of what had happened. Some expressed disappointment, while others used his downfall as a warning about the dangers of idolizing celebrities without question. The entertainment industry itself was forced to reevaluate its approach to power and accountability. Agencies and production companies implemented stricter policies, ensuring that those in positions of influence faced greater scrutiny. The case sparked discussions about the responsibilities of public figures and the importance of protecting those who were vulnerable to exploitation. It became clear that fame could no longer serve as a shield against justice. For Kris Wu, there was no path to redemption. Unlike past celebrity scandals that had been quietly settled or forgotten over time, this case left no room for a comeback. His story, once one of ambition and global success, had turned into a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked power. His legacy was no longer defined by his achievements, but by the choices that led to his downfall. The entertainment world moved on, but the impact of his actions remained, serving as a lesson that no one, no matter how powerful, is beyond accountability. Kris Wu's downfall was more than just a celebrity scandal. It was a moment of reckoning for an industry that had long protected its most powerful figures. His case sent a clear message that no level of fame, wealth, or influence could shield someone from the consequences of their actions. It served as a stark reminder that behind the glamorous world of entertainment, there were real people, real victims, and real abuses of power that could no longer be ignored. The entertainment industry has always operated on an illusion, one where celebrities appear untouchable, where image is carefully crafted, and where scandals are often swept under the rug. But this case shattered that illusion. It forced people to question the structures that had allowed someone to act without accountability for so long. It exposed the dangers of blind devotion, where fans, corporations, and even the media had once enabled behavior that should have been scrutinized far earlier. the conversation surrounding Kris Wu's case expanded beyond him as an individual, sparking discussions about systemic issues within the industry. It brought attention to the responsibility of agencies, brands, and media outlets in holding powerful figures accountable, rather than prioritizing profit and reputation. Beyond the entertainment world, his case was a reflection of a larger shift in society. In an era where victims are no longer silenced and social media amplifies voices that once went unheard, there is a growing demand for justice, transparency, and responsibility. The age of celebrities operating without consequences is coming to an end. This case was proof that when the truth comes to light, no amount of status or privilege can erase it. For those who once idolized Kris Wu, his story serves as a powerful lesson. It is a reminder that admiration should never come at the cost of ignoring the truth. It is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of believing oneself to be above the law. Fame is fleeting, but integrity is what truly defines a person's legacy. In the end, what remains is not the music, the movies, or the designer clothes, but the choices that were made and the irreversible impact they had on others.